That was a little bit of Finnish for you. You will be seeing some more in my presentation. It's a great honor to be here and to tell you some facts and some recent events that have happened in my country, and it's always a very difficult thing to choose. Like we saw here, what to choose to a presentation in 30 minutes. So I hope I can give you some idea now, and maybe in the discussion you can ask me some unexpected questions that I wasn't really prepared for. I assume that you know quite a lot about Finland already, but I still will give you some background. So this is the structure of my talk. So I'm going to talk about the current language situation in Finland to begin with. And then I chose not just to concentrate on Finnish, but also on the foreign languages that the Finns or people living in Finland are able to speak. I had to talk about Swedish as well, because Finland is a bilingual country, so I can't really leave it out. And English, Finnish and Swedish together. And then, of course, the growing linguistic diversity and immigration will be part of my talk here too. And I will raise some questions at the end. So very quickly, when did Finnish become official language? 1863. Finland was part of Russia at that time. And Swedish was the language of administration and education, so Finnish was basically used in the sauna with family members. And we didn't have the language for administration at this time, so we had to develop it consciously, the words for science and arts and all those kinds of words. And after that, we also, of course, got Finnish in the school system and teacher education and so on. Finland is quite a young country. It became independent in 1917. And after that, there were some language disputes and problems and struggles between the speaker groups, and we finally ended up having language law 1922, which was recently renewed. Except in all islands, so in all islands that autonomous province, Swedish is the official language. Another matter that was very important in Finland was the reform of comprehensive schools. Sorry about that. Okay. In the early 70s, until that time, only people going to the academic path were given foreign languages. So after 1970s, foreign languages were required from all. So we actually already at that time took this 1+2 system that European Union has been trying to get into all European countries. And at the same time, the national languages became mandatory subjects. So every Finnish speaker has to learn Swedish at school, and every Swedish speaker has to learn Finnish. Finland is a very recent immigrant country, so we can count that 1981 we became of that, but actually immigration started really in the 90s later. And of course, very important for the Finnish language was the fact that we joined the European Union in 1995, and Finnish for the first time ever became a language of international cooperation. As you know, there are only 5.3 inhabitants in Finland, and not all of them are Finnish speakers, so that's a very, very small language actually we are talking about. It's very seldom I get to use my own language in situations like this. Okay, so about 91% speak Finnish. Swedish is a language for 5.4%. Sami has an official status in the Sami homeland. And I also mentioned sign language, which we have two variants of, Finnish, Swedish sign language as well. And the figures of the users are approximations. Other languages, 3.6%. And the biggest languages groups are, of course, our neighboring countries, Russian, Estonian, English, Somali, Arabic, Chinese, so on and so on. And Spanish is the 14th language in Finland with about 4,000 speakers. And I checked that there are 52 Catalan speakers, 7 Basques, and 1 Gallego speaker. So altogether we have 150 languages covered. We keep this register because of the official bilingualism. That's why we ask about this. But of course we can discuss how reliable this data is. So you can see that the groups have grown, and Russians are the biggest group, as you can see. Just a reminder, where is Swedish spoken in Finland? So you can see the more blue the color is, that's where it's more Swedish. So there are monolingual, or actually I should call them unilingual Swedish municipalities. There are those municipalities with both languages, with the Swedish as a majority language, and then when it gets lighter and lighter, there's more Finnish. So Finnish is quite wide actually. This means many things. Maybe I have the time, maybe I will just skip. But I have also put together this table so you can see down here are those figures for the whole country. But also, yeah, thank you very much. The figures for the whole country, but then you can also, maybe you're interested in seeing, in unilingual Finnish municipalities, there are speakers of Swedish, actually about 40,000. If they go to authorities, in these municipalities they don't get service in Swedish, because the municipalities are different in this way. There are unilingual Swedish municipalities, and if these things, about 2,500, go to authorities, they have to use Swedish. Okay. Here in bilingual places, we get everything in two languages. With state authorities, of course, you get documents that you can speak to in the court in your own language. And about immigrants, there's a lot of Finnish here, but I can show this is the capital region, so they basically live in Helsinki area. This is my home area, the region I come from. This is another big city. But they are everywhere in Finland, but there's a big, big difference between regions. Samis are up in the north. This is the Sami homeland, where they can use Sami with authorities. Oops. Okay, let's skip that. But of course, you know that in our constitution, as you mentioned, the Dutch is not there, but we have Swedish, we have Finnish, we have Sami, also Roma, and the so-called other groups, which are not defined, that also have the right to maintain and develop their own language and culture. And sign language users are also mentioned. This is section 17 in our constitution. You can find it easily on the internet if you are interested. Okay, national minorities. We haven't specified when we ratified the Framework Convention which they are, but actually we gave information about the Sami, the Roma, Jews, Tatars, Old Russians, and then Swedish-speaking Finns. Then to English, as you also have chosen this. This is currently our third national language. And I hope you can see in the picture what's represented there. Entrées, or whatever this word is, that's a shopping center. So in connection with that, a library was opened last spring in Espoo, which is a city close to Helsinki. And you can see 3 languages here. What is in biggest letters? Library. And then there is kirjasto, which is the Finnish word, and the Swedish one. And you can guess that this has led to many discussions. So we are actually in the same boat with the Netherlands. I think I read somewhere that only in the Netherlands they give more instruction in English at the university level than in Finland. So Netherlands is number 1, we come second, at least some years ago. Why in Finland? Let's have a look at the foreign languages. What has happened in schools? And there are some years. This is the time when we didn't really have the comprehensive school yet, so this was the academic path. So still in the 60s, German was chosen as the first foreign language, and it just has declined. French has never been very popular. Latin, Russian, and of course there may be some other languages, but English has grown since the 60s in this way. How about this, or the 90s, and this, the decade before? This is the first foreign language chosen, including Swedish this time, so the former slide didn't have Swedish. English is about 90% of the pupils. They choose English as their first foreign language. And we try, or Finland tries very hard to promote other languages. And they promise that if you take Swedish or German or French or Russian as at the age of 9, then you can start with English at the age of 10 as a so-called optional language, A2 language. Nothing seems to help. There have been many, many projects to diversify the language varieties, languages that are being chosen. If we look at the Eurostat report that just came out in September, how is Finland doing, you know, if you just compare foreign language learning among students in upper secondary education, here's the EU average. So, of course, nobody is with no foreign language. There are 0.2 with one foreign language, maybe with a certain kind of background, but very specific cases, almost 100% to at least 2 foreign languages, including Swedish. So English and Swedish would be those 2. How about older people? You can see that earlier the older ones maybe didn't have any foreign language skills. Only one language here, 2 or more, almost 70%. But it looks good on paper, but what does it include? English and Swedish as it's obligatory. And this topic has led to many discussions. Why do we have Swedish as one of these 2 languages? Can't it be just optional? And so, for example, people living close to the Russian border, they would be more motivated to choose Russian maybe. So why can't we choose like a neighbor's language or something? And it's a very, very heated debate sometimes. So on the basis of several reports that the researchers of English have made recently, they have come to this conclusion that it's not a foreign language in Finland anymore, it's a second language. So from English as a foreign language, it has become English as a second language for many young people. And what has happened? How did they learn this? It's not just a formal education, but English is the language of new media. And it's mostly boys who are very good in English, so they are even better at in the matriculation exam than girls very often. So they learn English from the internet, and they are using English in a functional and dynamic way very often. So you can expect that our future Formula 1 drivers will speak better than the current one, I assume. And in other ways too, the use of English has increased a lot. So as mentioned from the Netherlands, we have started the CLIL instruction already in the 90s, because the Basic Education Act was renewed in a way which allowed English or any language be the language of instruction. So we had Finnish and Swedish and Sami at that point, and then any other language was allowed. And this CLIL was blooming, and mostly it's English, also sometimes in German and French. It's a language of business, currently also in Nordic cooperation, very often in business. Maybe language people still speak in Nordic languages with each other, but this has replaced the older language that was used among the Nordic people. About 80% of dissertations are made in English, and this figure is from 2007. All the more English is used in the media and on the internet. Okay, examples. Everyday language. Probably you see the same words here, but sometimes they are combined with Finnish cases like Ruoholahden car wash and fix. So there's a genitive for this Ruoholahti. Espoo, that was the city with the library in English. Espoo, so Espoo's auto cleaner. There are slogans that are used very often, catchphrases in everyday language, sometimes in newspapers as well. So what, who knows anyway. In ads, both languages are used often in such a way that Finnish is giving the information and English is being used for commercial purposes. Of course, several positions or job names are in English in companies, not if that's a state job. What about Swedish? We have a special party, Swedish People's Party, and its vital interest is the status of Swedish And this party is almost always in the government. And the most recent one about this Swedish debate was at the beginning of the 21st century. And what happened, this party was in the cabinet when they decided that Swedish would not be an obligatory subject in the matriculation exam. So all of a sudden, even if it's obligatory in school, at the final examination after 12 years of school, it's not obligatory anymore. You can guess what happened, how many students choose to have this. It has declined very seriously. But not just this party. Maybe you know his face, but he got the Nobel Prize for Peace a year ago. He's Martti Ahtisaari, and he just recently wrote in our main newspaper about this topic. Studying the Swedish language will pay back later in life, so you will get your salary if you do your work. What about the minorities, other minorities? Let's go back to the 80s when Finland was without immigrants. This is a quotation from an article about how to teach Swedish to foreigners. And we very often compare our situation with Sweden, like she did here. And she's writing that there are no such problems in Finland in teaching Finnish like in other countries that receive a lot of immigrants. And what they have been obliged to do in Sweden, and there are all these people from illiterate to those with academic instruction, academic education. But you know, here in Finland, it's different because all the Finnish for foreigners instruction is at the university. And this was the view at that time. They are not coming to Finland. Maybe some returnees from Sweden will come. But, you know, Finland is isolated. We are not recruiting people. So this is not going to happen to us what happened with Sweden. What happened? These are some years. And two ways of counting the immigrants, foreign nationals, and then this language registry. And of course, you can see it's becoming bigger and it's showing the numbers, more correct numbers, but currently it's about 200,000 as I showed. You can also have a look at the Swedish speakers, and their number has declined. And if I say what I actually think, how many immigrants we have in Finland, I got this figure from a person in Statistics Finland. Actually, if you count first generation and second generation, we have about 300,000, so they are outnumbering the Swedish speakers already. Okay, should they come to Finland or not? This picture was taken in my city, Tampere, the 1st of October. Immigrants welcome, bring your families too. This was close to a school, primary school in the city center. Okay, there are many viewpoints of this. And as I mentioned, the Swedish-speaking party, I should mention that we also have this phenomenon in Finland, immigration critical voices. They have become very strong during the past 2 years. We have a party called the True Finns, and it's a very nationalistic, critical, right-wing, populistic party. And they also got a member in the European Parliament this past spring. And one of the representatives just got a conviction because he is writing in his blogs about Islam and Somali people, and so these kind of discussions have started. But not just this party. Well, I will skip this. But this is a big, major party, and this is from his MEP candidate, Kai Pöntinen's pages. So he's talking about weird things about language education as well, but I'll skip it now. This was in past Sunday's paper. A professor of Russian studies talks about, in a similar way as this blog person. And this has, you know, my email is full of things about this as I'm reading several lists, so people are talking about this very much. What about PISA comparisons and immigrants? Finland has succeeded quite well, and some other countries have said, well, we don't have immigrants, so that's the explanation. First, in 2006, there were enough of immigrants, so Finland's immigrants could also be taken into consideration. And the news item in February 2008 said that, oh look, immigrants who move to Finland, they even get 50 points higher than in other places. So this was, of course, ridiculed, as if this would happen really, but the numbers I think are still quite small. And a year later, from a report that was published this autumn, this is in the Ministry of Education's report about PISA and Finland. So now, wisely, they are saying that the time is not right yet to see whether the Finnish system will succeed any better in meeting this challenge. But their first reactions were very optimistic, 50 points more than in other countries. And as we look at other studies, we can see that after the 9 years of education, children with immigrant background have their risk to get outside the following education is twice as large as for the majority. And if they come from countries outside the EU, it's 3 times larger. So we know this very well. We project that by the year 2025 there would be about, well, this is the figure for the language speakers, so I assume it will be much higher, but the comparisons show in OECD countries that actually Finland's need to recruit labor is much more than this figure. So we don't know whether current arrangements that we have for school children and adults, can we adjust them to this growth that we can expect now? Some challenges at the end. So I think, and many researchers have written about this, several reports, English has become the foreign language in schools at the cost of all other foreign languages. And then, how can we diversify students' language choices without losing skills in Swedish? So currently the students are starting their studies of Swedish at the very nice age of 13 with an obligatory language. And there have been other suggestions whether to start with Swedish at the age of 7 even or 9. Would that be a natural time for acquiring the second national language? And English you would learn in any case. But this is a very difficult topic. What about the interests of young people as they are using English more and more? So what will this lead to? In the domains where Finnish gained ground about 150 years ago, like education, now we are giving it to English. What about the language diversity? We have lost in a variety of foreign languages, but gained in the number of languages in total, as we have is 150 languages. What about these languages? Can we consider the multilingualism of immigrants important, or is it just the Finnish speakers we are talking about? Currently, the Finnish policy is for the maintenance of all languages, but I can see that there is already signs of pressure to integrate the immigrants more efficiently and make them to choose between the languages. So we very often hear stories about the things that have happened in the Netherlands, and there are many politicians who bring these events very eagerly to Finland too. Why don't we just abolish this home language instruction, which we have at schools? It's very modest, but we still have it. What about when the immigration increases? Will this issue be more controversial in Finland? Can we value languages in Finland without first neglecting them? There was a group of researchers who wrote a language policy program for the Finnish language only, that was published last May. And they are very much concerned about the status of Finnish, so we are not as relaxed, at least the linguists, and I think the general public sometimes too worries about the influence of English in Finnish society. We think we are losing Finnish democracy if we are giving English all these domains. And this program, or the people behind the program, they suggest that there should be an official language policy program that would recognize all the languages used in Finland. So, and this hasn't been written yet, so we are the linguists who write these programs, but it seems to be the fact that there's a lot of there's not enough awareness of the meaning of language and indifference to the language issues. So that's a big problem. Why doesn't the government do many things? We do a lot when it has to do with the language legislation, as it has follow-up. So every 3 years, the government has to report to the parliament whether the Swedish and Finnish have been able, whether people have been able to use the languages and so on. But what about the English? Nobody seems to care as much as the linguists do currently. Okay, I will skip this.